Spent a lot of time talking about, well, the Antichrist and how to keep our eyes open, keep our spirits alert using the Bible. That's my whole goal. That was the whole purpose of this channel, and I would like to continue on. I realized today that I never actually, I speak about them directly and indirectly in many of my videos, but I've never directly addressed the prophetic types of Antichrist in the Bible and how they all build upon one another. It's sort of like a picture on top of a picture on top of a picture on top of a picture until you get all the combined attributes of all of these enemies of God into one solid, basically outline of Antichrist, his character, his motivations, his power source, which we all know is Satan. But all of the prophetic types in the Bible are ran by Satan. And in fact, all of these prophetic types have very like characteristics. I'll go over those real quick. They are all agents of the devil. They are all pursuing a satanic agenda. They are all fostering an anti-God religion. Regardless whether it's a political one or directly religious, it's still anti-God. They are practicing an anti-God type of rulership. In other words, they violate the basic principles of law and justice. Look around us. We're starting to see that come to fruition here in the West on a regular basis. They all overtly oppose the divine will of God. They're all stubbornly defiant of the divine will. They are all arrogant beyond normal human limits, and they all persecute believers individually or collectively, whether Christians at large or Israel in general, so as to make sure that the promises of God never come to fruition. And they're all dramatically destroyed by the works of God, usually in a masterful sense. In other words, it's prophesied to happen ahead of time. God uses them for his intended purpose, usually punishment, and then utterly waylays them and destroys them and makes an example out of them, because every single one of them go much further than God's original intention. Plus they had evil in their heart the whole time, and God was making use of it. Our first example, which I'm going to go over in this video, is Nimrod. Genesis 8:10 through 12, and also 11:1 through 9. So, and I'll just read directly from this excerpt because it's wonderful. So in some respects, Nimrod represents the beginning of a trend for which Antichrist is essentially the ultimate expression of. Nimrod was the first person to attempt, and the only person besides Antichrist to actually achieve, the political unification of the world for nefarious purposes, being against God in this case. In each case, that of Nimrod and of Antichrist both, the power behind the political movement by which they accomplish international unification is Satan. And in each case, the hidden purpose behind the unification is diabolical in the extreme, namely, the eradication from the earth of faith and of the faithful. Both men place at the center of their political and social reforms a religious core that is exclusive in respect to any genuine worship of God. Nimrod's ziggurat, the pyramid, the Tower of Babel, and Antichrist's abomination of desolation, or abomination which causes desolation, both serve the same essential purpose of forcing universal worship of Satan, while at the same time preventing any overt expression of faith in the one true God. Universalization, homogenization, and degradation of national, legal, economic, and social barriers are key planks in the agendas of both men. For these steps serve to remove the divinely provided bulwarks of resistance that have, at other times, prevented such total assaults on the true faith and practice. Though we know less than we would like to about Nimrod, we can say from Scripture that he was an effective, extremely effective organizer and a man of unprecedented charisma. Indeed, he is said to have been a mighty man at capturing men, and the opposition of the phraseology in the Hebrew shows that when it says he was a mighty man at capturing men against God, the inference is, and it's very logical, mighty men at capturing men and turning them against God. In other words, pulling them to his side. He wasn't actually, he wasn't an assassin. He wasn't a mass murderer, although you could say, spiritually speaking, he tried to get everybody killed because he was being helped by Satan to do so. To such a degree was the case that he was able to enlist the entire population of Earth of his day into his satanic enterprise of building both Babylon the city which comes to symbolize Antichrist's kingdom as well, not ironic, and the Tower of Babel, a unifying religious symbol that serves as a powerful metaphor for the beast's Antichrist religion. That this plan was most definitely anti-God in both design and effect was made clear enough in his appeals, as the meaning of his nickname Nimrod clearly attests. It literally means "let us revolt." In a similar way, Antichrist will oppose God in an unmistakable and overt way, for he will portray himself as actually being God. So obviously Nimrod was just a teaser. Although there were doubtless few individuals in Nimrod's day who did not in fact bow the knee to Baal. That's the same idea of the 7,000 who didn't worship the northern kingdom's evil gods during the time of Elijah. The biblical chronicle of events suggests that they were few and far between. In other words, there were believers back then. There always have been. They've just been in the extreme minority. And at that time, if the entire world would have joined him and consistently kept on in their socio-religious anti-God activities, much like Antichrist tries to get to occur worldwide, they would have ganged up and likely killed off faith from the earth. The social and political structures of that time all came around to allegiance with Nimrod and his diabolical vision. So too will it be with Antichrist and his political operations during the tribulation. One important thing to glean from Nimrod's prophetic type, therefore, is that we contemporary Christians should take pains not to underestimate the persuasiveness of Antichrist, or the effectiveness of his appeal, or the near totality of his coming successes, because they will be extreme. We need to be ready for that. We need to be ready for it to not overwhelm us, because we've been living in a world where it feels like Christians can't win. Technically speaking, if we keep going on the way it is and the Lord never comes back, how could they? Satan's down here. For as a prophetic type of Antichrist, we must understand that Nimrod's experiences are to be taken as roughly analogous to those of Antichrist. This is both a minatory and monitory fact that speaks not only to the magnitude of Antichrist's future power, but also to the shocking alacrity with which the world of that time will turn to follow him. It will be astounding. Believers, therefore, need to be doubly on guard and prepare themselves diligently against that day when seemingly the whole world will be swept along after him. For the events and circumstances of those times will be more electric and seductive than we can easily imagine before the fact, and only those who are solidly and resolutely committed to their Lord can have any hope of escaping the tremendous pull that the Antichrist and his false messianic movement, because he's going to claim to be the Christ, will exert, just as in the case of Nimrod, when very few managed to do so. So it was fostered as though the entire world went after Nimrod and his plans, and essentially, if we go by the raw numbers, they did. The building of a Babylon, a political economic undertaking, was the main satanic objective of the Tower of Babel, a social religious icon, the rallying point to enlist support for that objective. Similarly, Antichrist will have both a political economic objective, in other words, world political and economic domination, and make heavy use of a unique socio-religious strategy to advance that objective. Just as Nimrod's appeal was to build the tower so as to preserve the name and the unity of humanity, so we may expect the satanic religion of Antichrist to preach a doctrine of extreme humanism, and to furnish putative moral grounds for an internationalist messianic crusade that promises the ideals of social and religious unity, based upon the prior imposition of political and economic homogeneity imposed from above, in other words, like a communist dictatorship. As with all purity, that's in quotes, movements of this sort, divergence beyond the parameters set by the movement will not be tolerated. And in this we see the true satanic purpose behind all such internationalism, the eradication of alternative points of view, namely of true faith and of the truly faithful. Nimrod's scheme began as a grassroots movement, and we have every reason to believe that such will be Antichrist's method as well. In a troubled world, a charismatic leader calling for a new age of religious tolerance, social justice, economic reform, and political enfranchisement will again prove to be a successful formula, both because of the attractiveness of the leader proposing it and because of the unique, radical, and comprehensive nature of the changes to be proposed. To put the matter in 20th century terms, Antichrist will exude charisma and leadership beyond anything seen in the most successful fascist leaders, while his political and religious formulations will prove exciting and astounding even to the most skeptical of individuals. And the dark genius of both his personal appeal and of his doctrines will be that these will yet be inclusive of all but the established elites whom he desires to replace. In other words, the elites that we see as lording over us right now will likely be replaced, and it will be a power play designed to get our favor. And those determined to remain loyal to principles of either natural or biblical divine truth, in other words, believers along with unbelievers who are not deceived by the essential wrongness of his utopian rhetoric, both of which groups Antichrist will be intent on destroying, aimed at circumventing the existing power structures, at least in its initial stages, and content to ignore that small element with which will maintain its allegiance to the truth, Antichrist's movement too will begin as a grassroots mass movement rather, until, as it gathers momentum, it begins to co-opt institutions and organizations en masse. So it's likely to take over all major churches, all major organizations. Everybody will basically bow to his whim and will because it's so effective. For many who will be caught up in the enthusiasm of this movement, the higher purpose of Antichrist's socio-religious crusade will be the bait which draws them in. But just as Nimrod used the Tower of Babel to draw in supporters for his plan of world unification, so also after these victims of Antichrist have been hooked, the switch will come, and it will be an easy matter to convince them that political and economic domination must first be achieved before social justice and religious enlightenment can be imposed. In this way, Antichrist will, like Nimrod before him, enlist the bulk of the earth's population into his satanic movement. That very much is some of the most potent words that I've heard to describe how Antichrist comes to the fore. He will be a super politician par excellence, people. He will be the absolute cat's pajamas. And not to go too far off subject, but in many, many ways, his false prophet will have a lot of those same leanings as well. Again, not that I claim to know exactly who it is, but if it is the guy that I think it is, he's going around on the left and the right, doing everything he can to make friends, basically right up the middle of things politically, mostly appealing to a non-faithful reason, if you will. And we're going to see more and more in that as it goes. I may make a video about it here pretty quick, but I'm going to leave this video here just so it's short because I know they've been long lately. But you guys can start to see how each one of these types, and I'm going to make a video about each one because they're all amazingly good. By the way, this came from ichthus.com, ICHTHYS.com. The writer of the website and its own author. He's the head of classics at University of Kentucky, Louisville, and he is the most amazing teacher ever. And he's the one who helped me put this together and a lot of my inspiration for wanting to make this channel. If you guys want to check that out, go to that website. It's a heavy read, it's a heavy lift, but my God, it's amazing. It will be absolutely worth your time if you have it. If not, keep watching. I'll do everything I can to keep distilling down his work and putting this out there for you. Up next will be Pharaoh. We'll be talking about him in the next video. Hope you guys are enjoying this. Comment, like, share, subscribe, yada yada, YouTube, you know. I love you guys. I hope you're doing well, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.